Wright Way Wednesday on a Wednesday night. And before I get into my topic on tonight, I do have this financial tip for you. And that is to don't be afraid to try something different, a different way to actually get money or to actually make money. Um, Earlier this week, somebody was showing me some new ways to actually make money, and I was actually able to do so. Now, it was definitely different from what I'm actually used to, but it was something that actually worked. And so I would advise you all to do the same thing. Don't be afraid or ashamed to learn some new things and new ways to actually make money. But do watch out for those scammers. There's a lot of scammers out there, and it's tax season. A lot of scammers are going to be looking to take your money that you will be getting from your taxes. So watch out for the scammers as well. But do, if you can, learn some new ways to actually make money. That doesn't have to come from you doing your regular 9 to 5 or whatever kind of job you may actually work. But my topic on tonight is finding money in hard times. All right, so I'm going to be looking at Second Kings chapter 4, verses 1 to 7. And just a little background of the actual scripture. I'll leave it in my description. And please go and read it for yourself. I'll be breaking it down. I probably won't read the actual verses, but I'll just tell you some of the things that I got out of this actual scripture. So, giving some background to it, there's a woman who is a widow because her husband has actually passed away, and she talks about her husband actually being a man of God. And then she's meeting and talking to Elisha, and she's telling him about this, and he's supposed to be a man of God. And then she mentions to him that basically she needs help financially, because if she does not get help financially, she's going to have her debtors come to collect her two boys so that they can work and be their slaves. Now, this is an interesting word for a lot of people, especially in the U.S., in terms of the word slave. Now, oftentimes in the Bible, when it refers to the word slave, it doesn't mean it in the same sense that we think of it here in America, but it's talking about someone who has to work for somebody else. So oftentimes people have to work for somebody else to actually pay off their debts. And if you look at our society today, a lot of us are in that same situation where we work for someone else so that we can pay the bills and things that we actually have. And we have to keep on going back to that job so that we can actually pay our bills. And if we don't go to that job, then our bills won't be paid. Then also too, some of us are in that same situation where we owe money to maybe a credit card company, maybe somebody that we borrowed money from, or maybe even making car payments. And so basically you have to do what they tell you to actually do, because you actually have to pay them back, or you owe them in this case. And oftentimes in our society today, a lot of people will make you pay much more for the items or things that you may have or borrow from them than what they actually cost, due to them putting APR on the things that you actually get. Now, another thing to point out in this scripture is in verse number 2. When she's talking to Elisha, she lets him know, because he asks her, well, what do you actually have in your home? And she goes on by saying like, hey, I have nothing in my home. I just have these buckets. And she's like, that's all I basically have. And so then he lets her know that those buckets of jars that she has with oil, then this is, he's going to break down what she can actually do with these things. But it's important to say that with God, oftentimes we look at things as being nothing, and we look at things as not being useful. But God can do much with a bunch of nothing, as we may actually call it And oftentimes too, God can take a nobody and make him a somebody, make him somebody that people will respect and that people will actually listen to. So don't always look at your own life and think that, hey, I'm a nobody. Know that God can actually do and work wonders in your life, and he can make you a somebody. And then don't look at all the things that you have as nothing, and know that God can actually use those things and actually make something out of them for you. And then lastly, I would say be mindful that you have a woman of God, a man of God around you, or people of God around you, because they can do things like we're going to see Elijah does for this woman to actually help them out. Now, in verses 3 and 4, we see that breaking down both of these. After she lets him know about this, Elijah tells the woman to go and basically borrow buckets from your neighbors and people close by you. Now, this is important to know for us, is that oftentimes when God is going to bless you and he blesses you with things financially, it requires you to actually do something as well. And then not only with financial blessings, but with other blessings as well, is that you have to be able and willing to actually do something, meaning that there's going to have to be some action on your part as well. I think often too, when Jesus needed to pay his taxes, and then he told Peter to go fish and go get a fish, catch a fish. And when he caught the fish, there was money in the fish so that they were able to actually pay their taxes. So in the same sense with this woman, Elijah is telling her, hey, go get, buckets from your neighbors, and then use these buckets basically for this oil. And so as she actually goes to actually gets them, this is her actually putting her faith into action. And so you have to ask yourself, if you're going through some financial issues or struggles, God can definitely help you out with those things. But there's going to be some actions that you're going to have to actually take on your own end. There's going to be some things that you will have to do so that he can actually work the blessing in your life. So whatever you may be going through financially, you need to go to God about it and see how he can bless the work of your hands and bless the things and abilities that you have to bring more money actually to you. So then we see in verse 4 that they went and they knocked on all their neighbors' doors, and basically her sons went and they got this oil, and then they poured it into the actual vessels, and they were able to actually fill up these actual buckets. So we see all these actions being actually done by them. And that's the same way that you have to do when you're in financial hardship or in hard times. You have to take the things that God has given you and actually use those to the best of your ability, and let him actually start pouring the things out for you, or pouring the blessings down for you. Now, another thing that I didn't point out in verse 4 that actually leads into verse 5 as well is that Elijah tells her that when she gets these basically buckets, to actually go and take them and then go and close her room and shut up the room behind her, just leaving her and her sons actually in the room so that the miracle can actually work. Now, this is something that is very important leading into verse 5. One, she actually follows what he actually told her to actually do. So sometimes the Lord may be speaking to you to tell you to actually do things, and you need to actually follow what he's actually telling him. Or it may be a man of God, a woman of God that comes to you and lets you know these things, and you should actually take heed and actually follow them. Or it may be from the actual word, when you're actually reading the word and you actually follow and actually do what the word actually tells you to actually do. But another thing I do want to point out is when you're having issues financially, is to make sure that you actually get away from the people who are not non-believers, but non-believers in what you're actually trying to do. So that means that you may have financial goals or certain things financially that you want to do and actually change in your life. And you're going to have maybe family and friends and other people that you know who are going to tell you that you can't actually do it. You're not going to actually make it. So it may be possibly a dream of owning your own business. And there may be some people in there that you know that are close to you who are going to tell you that you can't actually do it. You're not going to actually make it. So oftentimes you're going to have to shut yourself off from them and just go ahead and do what you know is actually in your heart, or what you know maybe God has actually been speaking to you, or something that you know that eventually is going to work out for your favor. So when you're in these financial hardships and things like that, know to stick to the plan that you have developed, and then don't let other people talk you out of it and walk you out of it. And then also too, just in your own personal prayer lives, it's always good for you to close the door and shut off everyone else and go into your war room and go into prayer to God about the issues and the problems that you actually face. But also too, it's always good too that you make sure that you have your immediate family, those who live with you, and that you actually do those things with them, and go and pray and go and do what you guys actually believe. Scripture tells us, as for me and my house, we will follow the Lord. So whatever it is that your house actually believes in terms of God, you should actually follow that, and not what the world or what anyone else outside of your house may be trying to lead you into the wrong path of actually doing. And then lastly, in verse number 6, it does say that now it came to pass when the vessels were full that she said to her sons, bring me another vessel. And so we're going to see what happens in verse 7. Now, verse number 7 and verse 6 ends with basically her sons letting her know that they cannot, there's no more. So that's it as far as the vessels, because she's trying to get another vessel. So basically the miracle that's going on, if you're following, is that this oil that she has just keeps on pouring. So this is what Elijah was able to bless her with, is that this oil that she has is just pouring in these buckets. It's like a never-ending oil going into these buckets. Now, here's the interesting thing at the end of it, when she goes to him and she lets him know that basically they kind of ran out of buckets, and he lets her know that, okay, go and sell this oil. So now you see where he's helping her financially, because she was in debt in the beginning. And so now Elijah has blessed her and worked this miracle in terms of her having the oil that actually keeps on pouring into all these different buckets. Now she has the ability, and going back to what I was saying earlier, where you have to still go out and do some physical stuff. God can work miracles in your life, but you have to be willing to do the physical stuff as well, because he lets her know, go out and actually sell this oil to people. And then he lets her know to go and actually pay off her debt. And then after she actually goes and pay off her debt, he lets her know, when she's done paying off her debt, then take the rest of the money for you and your children. So meaning basically live off the rest of this money and do right by this money. And so this is what we have to actually do, and what we should be all hoping and looking to do is find ways where we can actually make money outside of working our regular 9-to-5s or our regular jobs, not for the glory of ourselves or for us to lift up ourselves or tell people how great we are, but for our actual families, and making sure that they're not in debt, and making sure that you're not in debt. And then definitely always being able to not be the person that has to work for other people to actually make money, but being able to make money on your own and pay your bills and pay off your actual debts. So it's a good thing for us to always look for other ways to make more money outside of our regular jobs. And then it's definitely important too that we make sure that we make a way for the people that are in our actual immediate families, making sure that they're not lacking and that they are set to go and that they can do things and be great in this world by us helping them out financially to be on the right track. But this has been another Right Way Wednesday. Go ahead and look at these verses on your own. Get your own little interpretation of it. I will leave the scripture in the description. And as always, know the way, go the way, and show the way, the right way.